Perth versus Melbourne, or more specifically, Mandurah versus Dallas. Which one would you rather buy in?
It has increased by 7% over the past 3 months.
Some are saying Perth's done and dusted, and some are saying it's way too early for the Melbourne party to start. This episode, together with Gilbert Melgar, founder of Suburbs Finder, we jump into a direct comparison, trying to strip back as much of the opinion and lean on the data.
LGA of Hume City. It has a gross regional product of 18.28 billion. For it's within 5.31% yield.
As a data analyst, which one are you choosing?
Looking at the data, I would put.
If you're the kind of investor that likes to understand the numbers and wants to directly compare a choice in Melbourne versus a choice in Perth, you're going to enjoy this episode. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast, and you're listening to my chat with Gilbert Melgar. Gilbert Melgar, back again, man. How are you?
I know. Thank you, Todd. Thank you for having me again.
Mate, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think this is going to be an episode that we might make into a little series. I mean, depending on how things go today, but we're doing a comparison.
Yep.
Perth versus Melbourne. We've been covering a bit of content on this lately, but you've really taken it to the next level by dicing it up from like an LGA level, then going down to suburbs, but you're actually comparing now literally properties with a budget of around that kind of 550,000 to invest,
Yep.
which I think for most people right now investing, it's pretty much around that kind of sweet spot. So we're going to be diving right into the answer, but before we answer the question, we need to actually set it, which the goal that we've set here is medium-term growth. So not that short-term sugar hit, not that sick, it's going to go up like in 6 months, awesome, I've made a little bit of equity, but maybe it's going to stop. But also not the whole, okay, well, it's going to double in value in like 20 years' time, 10 years' time. You'd hope it would do it in 20 years, but
yeah. Everyone would hope like that.
Yeah. So medium term, we're defining as more like around that kind of like 18 months, 3 years, like it's medium term kind of growth. That's the goal of it. What are the choices that you've got prepared to start comparing Perth versus Melbourne?
Yep. So we do have the suburb of Mandurah in Mandurah, of course, LGA.
So a very popular one.
Yep. And Dallas in Hume.
Dallas and Hume. And how did you come to choose Mandurah and Dallas? Why them?
Because both of them have the same similar demographics and similar price point of what we've said. Yep. Okay. All right.
So you're making sure that you're comparing sort of like and like.
Yep.
I was going to say chalk and cheese, but that's the opposite. Yeah. So, all right, man, what's option A then? Which one do you want to dive into first?
Option A, on an LGA wise, so we can start with the city of Mandurah.
With Mandurah, okay.
On an LGA level.
Okay.
So it has a gross regional product of 4.31 billion.
So for anyone that's already lost, gross regional product, walk us through that.
So gross regional product is the way that measure or the size or the net wealth generated by the local economy.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's kind of like a local GDP?
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay. All right. So 4.3 billion. That sounds like a lot of money. I'm assuming we're about to compare that, but like, is that pretty healthy?
It is healthy because that represents 1% of the state's GSP or the gross state product for WA.
Okay. All right, so LGA-wise then?
And the population-wise as well, it's 99,000 in population for the whole LGA.
All right, so 99,000. Is that pretty standard? Is that been going backwards, forwards? Where is it sort of trending?
It is pretty standard because looking at 2021, it was on 93,000.
93,000. Okay, so that's some pretty reasonable growth, really, isn't it?
Yep.
As a percentage, that sounds like a lot. And before we move on to the suburb, is there anything else you wanted to talk about for the LGA side of things?
Yeah, just to add to that, the unemployment rate, based on the 2024 March quarter data, the city of Mandurah has an unemployment rate of 3.6, which is equal to 1,559 employees.
That's pretty reasonable, isn't it? 3.6?
Yep. So Greater Perth's unemployment rate is 3.7.
Yeah, okay.
And WA is 3.7 as well.
Right, okay, so it's pretty much bang on. It's comparable.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. All right, suburb-wise, talk to me about Mandurah from more of a detailed suburb level.
So suburb level-wise, median house price is 490K.
490, okay.
It has increased by 7% over the past 3 months.
All right, and what are we looking at for yields?
For yield, it's within 5.31% yield because as of today, the median rent is 500.
So $500 a week rent as a median. So 5.3% yield. So off the bat, 5.3.
Yep.
So people are scoring sixes and potentially even higher than if they're putting the deals together.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So this is already sounding pretty good. What else suburb level do we need to know?
Vacancy rate is 1.4%, and it's been pretty steady over the past 6 months.
So 1.4%, like that is low for a vacancy rate, especially if we're talking like historical standards. But now it feels like there's a lot of areas around there that are like 0.7, 0.8, that kind of thing. Honestly, I was expecting you to say a little bit lower. What's going on there?
There are more rental properties coming up in the market.
Okay, so because this has been a real investor focus for the past year, 2 years, there's a bit more choice for people renting now. Gotcha. And is there any kind of numbers on how many more or how that's kind of trending?
It is trending a bit upward, but it's still below 1.5.
Okay, so it's not like it's flooding into the market.
No, definitely not.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Before we get into the property side of things, anything else you want to talk about on a suburb level for Mandurah?
Last would be, it has increased by 36% over the past 12 months.
36% in 12 months is some very healthy capital growth.
Yep.
God. Okay. 36%. That's awesome. And so 36% over 12 months, 1.4% vacancy rate, $500 a week is median rent. We're talking about a 5.3% yield. Median house price at the time of recording, $490,000.
And the days on market is 11.
And the days on market is 11. So it's basically it's up and it's gone.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's talk property.
Yep.
What have we got as a comparable here? What property are you looking at?
Where I'm looking at the property here in Mandurah, it's a 3-bed, 1 bath and 1 garage.
Okay.
On an 812 square meter block.
And I'm just peeking over at the screen here. So does this need work or what does it look like?
Doesn't need work. It's being they're asking is 519. So if you can
519.
Yeah.
Okay.
Property looks okay. You don't need anything to fix.
Yeah, floors look good.
Yep. But definitely if you want to add more value in it, you can. But it's good to rent.
Yeah, it's totally livable at the moment.
Yep.
Gotcha. How far away from the water are you? You going to do a map there?
So it's 6 to 8 blocks away from the beach.
Okay, so 6 to 8 blocks away from the beach. So we're not Esplanade or a street back, but that's still pretty damn close to the water.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And why did you pick this one?
Because it's within our budget and it meets our goal that we don't have to do anything or we don't need to manufacture growth, that we can rent it out right away when we purchase it.
Right. So you're basically matching this to the goal is medium-term growth. The goal isn't renovate. The goal isn't develop. Gotcha. Okay. So tell me more details about the property itself.
So looking at the position of the property, it's not on a bushfire zone area.
Okay. Brilliant.
And also on the flood zone. It's not on the flood prone area. And last is we'll also check on the zoning. So the zoning, it's on a general residential zone.
Right. Okay. So it's not looking like it's going to get burnt away or flooded away anytime soon.
Yes.
And general residential zone, what does that mean for the property locally?
So property, definitely all of the properties that are in there are more of like houses.
Yep.
And there's no high-rise or apartment unit blocks,
So this isn't about to be knocked down and turned into 12 townhouses anytime soon?
No.
Gotcha. Okay.
Plus, knowing the fact that it's not on a bushfire flood zone, it won't affect your insurance cost as well.
Gotcha. So again, coming back to the goal, if someone was looking for development, this has just got a big cross put through it.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, man. Is there anything else you want to talk about with option A before we get to option B? Because I'm looking forward to comparing the two, but we need to unpack option B first. Anything you want to discuss about A as a final wrap up before we do?
No, I think that'll be all.
Cool. Yep. What's option B looking like, man?
So option B.
We're over in Melbourne?
Yep. So option B. So we are looking at Dallas. In an LGA of Hume City.
Okay, yep. Dallas. And tell me about the LGA of Hume.
So it has a gross regional product of estimated of 18.28 billion.
Geez, I thought 4.3 was big. 18 point what?
18.28 billion, which represents 3.41 of the state's gross state product. So it's triple than Mandurah.
Is Hume just like heaps bigger?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It has
what's the
it
population
just
here?
makes sense because it has a population of 262,000 compared to 99,000 of Mandurah.
It's still a better GRP though, because even then the population's not quite triple, but the GRP is way more than triple.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's backing that? Why is that? Is it just Melbourne economically as a stronger state?
It's always been, even if you go to the previous 10 years, it's always been a strong economy in terms of GRP. But this has continually still increasing.
So this isn't flatlining either.
No.
Okay. So some pretty strong local economic figures for Dallas, well, more so specifically Hume, the LGA. What else are we looking at for the LGA of Hume, like unemployment rate wise?
Yes. So compared to Mandurah, the Hume's unemployment rate on LGA level is 7.1.
Wow. So that's bigger. And that's not the one you want to be bigger.
And that's 9,558.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
2024 March. Yeah.
Okay. So there's unfortunately a lot more unemployment, almost double the amount.
Yes, because the Greater Melbourne's unemployment rate is 3.9 and Victoria as a state is 3.8.
Okay. Now, I don't even know if you can really comment on this like from a data analysis point of view, but as far as comparing both of these, they're both very much like blue collar or potentially even below the blue collar a bit. Is Dallas a bit more than Mandurah, or is it like, no, they actually are pretty similar as far as like demographics of incomes and everything else?
They're pretty much similar.
Pretty much similar.
That's why we picked these two areas. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the unemployment rate just genuinely is higher here.
Yes.
Okay.
Relative to number of population as well.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So is anything else you want to talk about LGA wise before we go suburb wise into Dallas?
Now, I think that's on the suburb, on the LGA level. Yeah.
All right. Talk to me about Dallas then.
So Dallas, median price of 530.
530. Yep. How far away is this from Melbourne? It's like 20 something Ks, isn't it?
It is 24 kilometers away from Melbourne CBD.
About 24K. Okay. All right. So it's not heaps far out, but not super close. That's a reasonable distance.
Yep.
All right. So about 24Ks away, 530. What kind of rent are we talking?
So we're talking about 475, which brings us 4.66 yield.
So 4.6% yield. So our yield is lower. Our unemployment rate is higher.
Days on market is 32.
I was going to say our buy-in price is higher as well. And days on market is 32.
Yep.
Right. So we've got a huge days on market. That's what is it? Almost triple.
Yep.
Okay. So 32 for days on market. I feel like I already know where you're going with your answer here in your comparison, but let's keep going.
And looking at the changes on the price, so over the past 3 months, it has increased by just 1% over the past 3 months. And over the past 12 months, just 5%. So it's going up steadily, but it's slower compared to Mandurah.
So, and this is why I thought this would be a great comparison, because it reminds me of that fable. I know I must have told it on the show before. The two shoe salesmen that go to the village. It's like one gets off the plane, looks around, no one's wearing shoes, and he's like, "Nah, I need to go home. These people don't like shoes." The other one gets on the phone to his boss, and he's like, "Send them by the container. Everyone's a customer." It's like it's the same situation, but it's the way that you view it that makes all the world of difference. So are you already, and I might be jumping ahead, but are you already looking at this as going, all right, well, Dallas has potentially got more room to grow because, like you said before, 36% capital growth over the course of a year for Mandurah versus 5% in Dallas? Or are you looking at this more through that lens of the first guy going, nah, it's not its time?
Well, looking at on the second one, it's not yet its time. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why we have to look at other data as well to see what are the demand and supply metrics that we can overlay. It has to check that Mandurah still have steam to grow, right? And then also Dallas, when is Dallas time to move up?
Does it have the ignition to start?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we get into the comparison, which is going to open up a bit more of that, talk to me about the property level.
Yep.
What property we're actually looking at in Dallas?
So we're looking at what we have in the budget within the 555 to 585.
Okay.
And then it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and 1 garage. So this property, same as what we look at the other one, it's pretty much we don't need to do anything to rent it out.
Yep. Well, it looks pretty good. You can put a tenant in there right now.
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. It looks like there's probably still a little bit of scope to add a touch of value, but it's certainly not a renovator.
Yes. So this is something that you can rent it now, and along the future, within 3 or 4 years' time, you can add more value to it as well.
Okay. All right. So let's talk details around the property side of things. We just looked at zoning before for Mandurah.
Yep.
What's the zoning look like here for our property in Dallas?
So looking at the position of property, so it's not definitely not on bushfire zone area.
Excellent.
And it's not on the heritage listed site as well, or heritage zone. And the land zoning is in general residential zone.
And so for general residential zone, so again, that's not being chopped up into townhouses?
It can be for townhouses, but definitely not for the high-rise or apartment blocks.
Right. So it could have some medium sort of density on it, but you're not going like super high density.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about on a property level for Dallas before we start comparing these two side by side?
No, that'll be all.
Done. Let's jump into the comparison.
Yep. So suburb median price for both suburbs. So we have here side by side, and then the advertised price or property that we're going to buy, and then comparing the compounded annual growth as well. So we have the vacancy rate 1.4 for Mandurah and 0.84 for Dallas, and 20% deposit for each.
So Dallas is under 1% for vacancy rate?
Under 1% vacancy rate. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
And then our purchase cost, 142 for Dallas and 125 for Mandurah.
Okay, so similar.
Similar.
A little bit less for Mandurah, but otherwise, yeah.
Yep. So in terms of yield, Mandurah has almost 5%, 4.93, compared to Dallas 4.41.
4.41. Right. Okay. So cash flow wise, and this doesn't take into account any land tax issues because that also depends on the size of someone's portfolio.
Yes.
But obviously you're going to have some more land tax implications in Victoria with Dallas than you would in Mandurah and WA.
Yes, exactly. Plus, depends on if this is your
first
second,
or your 50th.
First, yeah.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yep. So property management, we put at 8%, interest 6.7. So we're looking at estimated cash flow for before tax per annum would be 13,215 for Dallas, and for Mandurah it's a negative 10,233.
All right, so a negative 13,000 versus negative 10,233. Yep. So WA is coming out ahead as far as its cash flow is concerned. So we've got Victoria with 13,000, WA with 10,000.
Yep.
What minus, I should say.
Minus 10,000, yep.
Right, and what interest rates did you do on them?
6.7.
6.7%.
Yep.
Okay, so someone might be able to get a little bit cheaper, but otherwise it's pretty comparable rate right now. Yeah. And that's interest only?
That's interest only.
Okay, so interest only. So WA is obviously going to be a touch easier to hold, right? They're both pretty negative. Yep. But given the growth, or more so the goal of medium-term growth, as a data analyst, which one are you choosing? If someone's putting these side by side in front of you, because to me, it's not like there's a clear winner as far as the cash flow is concerned, and that's not exactly our goal. Our goal is medium-term growth. Yep. What would you rather?
Looking at the data, I would pick Mandurah because the supply is still low at the moment, and the demand is still there.
Okay.
And aside from the fact that the yields is better, so that there's a balance between growth and cash flow.
Right. So you're looking at this going, there's more demand in Mandurah, there's better yield in Mandurah, and the demand doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. That looks like it's gonna. That's a bit more of a constant.
Yes. And the development approval for Mandurah compared to Hume, development approval is still negative compared to the previous 2 years.
Right. So as much as people are thinking, all right, Perth's done its dash, you're looking at it and going, nah, there's more left in the tank here.
Yes, because the future supply that are about to come into the market is still less compared to where it was.
So out of interest though, is Dallas a complete write-off for you, or is Dallas a like maybe? Is there like a big asterisk?
No, definitely not. It's just that, Dallas may offer more stability and long-term growth and economic fundamentals. But, but based on our goal, because of Mandurah's immediate goal of equity growth without significantly negative cash flow, that's what we're leaning on.
Right. So wrapping things up, Gilbert, it's not a write-off for Dallas. It depends on where you are with your investment journey. But as far as this comparison and this specific goal of medium-term growth, which let's face it, that's really what most people are after, is can I pull out the equity in a year, 2 years? How quick can I do that? Then Mandurah is in the front seat for you from both a cash flow perspective, from like a lack of building approvals perspective, the constant demand that's still there, like everything is still stacked in Mandurah's favor. But that Dallas isn't completely a no-go. It's just when you're putting these side by side, as a data analyst, Mandurah's coming out ahead for you.
Yep, definitely. Not only as a data analyst, but as an investor. If this is my 5th or 6th property, and I'm more than willing to wait for like 5-10 years, then I would go for Dallas.
Okay, but if you're looking for that medium-term growth, Mandurah's ticking the boxes.
Yep.
Gilbert Melgar from Suburbs Finder, thank you so much for jumping on the show, man, and thank you for putting all this work together.
Thank you for having me.